Hey guys, John here from Organic Nation. We're opening up with another live here for an important subject today called thyroid. Now, there's many conditions and or names that the doctors use for thyroid conditions, such as Hashimoto's thyroiditis, Graves, hypothyroidism, hypothyroidism, and we're going to go through what is the difference between these, how they come about, the misconceptions around them, and of course, as always, we're going to finish up with how to heal. We're going to talk about things like T3, T4, the assimilation of those, how the body produces them, so forth, what glands produce them, and TSH, and the misconceptions around those things. We're going to set a few of the records straight. It's not going to be in line, as usual, with most of the medical information out there. They have some of the answers, but they don't have them all. And so this is going to be an important time to clear up some of those things. If you have any questions, chuck them in the comments. And if you want to know anything particular about it, how to heal, all those sorts of things, we're obviously going to go through that information, but there will be extra information that you can get as well from the website, organicnation.co.nz, and you can click on those links that usually the questions that come up at the bottom there, and if they're not there, sometimes they make them available, sometimes they don't. If they're not there, just ask a question. We'll do a live answer as soon as we get that. So let's get on with it. The thyroid. It's a small gland in the front of your throat, and there's also the parathyroid, which is at the back of that, which is a little star-shaped, about the size of what would be like sunflower seeds, right? Little sunflower seeds in a star shape, and that has many functions, but it also controls things like, as people know, the calcium utilization and production in the body and so forth. But the thyroid itself, which is in front of that, just in behind the throat, very close to the throat in fact, is an important part of the endocrine system, which works in function with the liver, the other endocrine organs, the reproductive system, your spleen, your pancreas, your all of the other glands, such as the pituitary and that sort of thing. So this little gland that is, or the thyroid gland that is there, has a bunch of functions. Science knows some of them, but they're unaware of some of the other ones that are probably more important, or actually are more important than the ones that they feature. So let's get into what causes a thyroid to become low functioning or high functioning. There's two ways. It's called hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism. Now, hyperthyroidism, we'll start with that one, is when a virus called the thyroid, is often called the thyroid virus, but it's actually Epstein-Barr virus, one of the different strains. And depending on the strain you've got, one can be a particularly sort of more aggressive strain, can go to the thyroid in the third stage of the virus's life cycle. So let's just start with the basics of a virus and its life cycle. First stage, it comes into the blood, into the body through usually fluids. It could be sex, it could be drinking someone's drink and they've got saliva on it. It's usually bodily fluids. It's called the kissing disease. It comes into the bloodstream, and when this virus enters into the bloodstream, it's basically looking for a place where it can set up its home. Typically the virus, you can have a strain when you're born and passed on from your parents, and then you can pick up one later on, you meet a partner or you kiss someone or something like that. And so it comes into the body, and they're much, much more catchy these days, like any mutated form of bacteria and viruses. They're coming into the body, they pick up pace a lot faster than they used to, and they cause damage in the body now when they used to be once upon a time very beneficial to the body. And so what happens, the virus comes in, it sets up its little nesting place, usually the liver, spleen, pancreas, different places in the body, and once that gets going, it builds its numbers, and then your second stage is when it nestles in that organ or multiple organs in the body, and then once it's got its numbers up and you have something, a crisis in your life, some kind of trigger event, such as a death of a loved one, an accident, a divorce, a marriage breakup, these sorts of things can be a trigger event, then it will move, when your immune system tanks and drops down low, it'll move up to the thyroid and start basically drilling into the thyroid. Now, at this stage, the virus has actually changed its shape into a cone shape and begins to be able to actually drill into the thyroid tissue itself. And this is what causes the thyroid tissue damage that doctors would call, inflammation or, swelling of the thyroid, things like this. So it's actually just tissue damage inside the thyroid. Now, the difference between hyper and hypo is that a hyperthyroid caused by an aggressive virus is where the virus is actually causing the thyroid to it's stimulating the thyroid to grow extra cells, and those extra cell growth then produces an extra heightened amount of thyroid hormones and various other hormones and things that the thyroid's responsible for producing. Hypo, on the other hand, is the opposite. A slightly less aggressive form of virus comes in, it drills into the tissue and causes a degradation of those cells, a lowering of the cell production, and then of course you get a lowering of the production of the mostly like T3 and T4. There's various other hormones as well that are related. Now, the virus part is not commonly understood by the medical world, but they understand when your blood tests high for T3, T4, TSH, or low. And so that can create some misconceptions around what's causing it and how to treat it. Now, when someone gets diagnosed with an overactive thyroid or an underactive thyroid, the course of events basically heads toward medication. Now, if it's underactive, hypo, then often you'll be prescribed something in the lines of thyroxine or various other treatments, or sometimes even with pig hormone, thyroid hormone, that sort of thing as well. But thyroxine, the drug, the trademark drug, is actually just a name that is used for T4. Thyroxine is T4. And T3, the other one that is the precursor to, the T4 is the precursor to the T3, is a hard one to pronounce, and I'm going to pronounce it for you as best as I can here. Triiodothyronine. Triiodothyronine. Something like that. It's basically, or thyrine, sorry. Yeah, the last part I was getting mixed up. So that T3 hormone is what the liver actually takes up the T4 and turns that into T3 for the body. Now, the interesting thing about the thyroid is that most people, when they get a thyroid diagnosis, they have a whole bunch of symptoms that the doctor has said, oh, okay, we'll test your blood and see what's going on. They see that you're low in T3, T4, and TSH, and then they'll, prescribe this. That's the most common one. They'll prescribe this thyroxine drug or various other drugs for the thyroid, and then, your TSH will come back down. Say if it's at 10, it may come back down to say 5 or 4, and they'll say, okay, so we're fixing the problem here. Often the symptoms don't go away though, and there's a good reason for that. The most common thing is that they think, the medical world thinks that they're actually solving a problem, when in actual fact the pituitary gland, which produces the TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, is actually just getting a false reading and saying, okay, we seem to be all good here, there's plenty of this in the blood, we don't need to stimulate any more of the extra hormone. When in actual fact, the thyroid's still languishing, it's still getting drilled into, it's still getting damaged, and then it's still weakening along the way. And so you can go 10, 20 years of this with these drugs and medication coming in, and you're really going up. If the tests were correct, you would be really going up from 10 to 20 to 30 on the tests. And in actual fact, nothing's getting healed or helping. It appears as if the medication's working, but it's actually not. And the reason you're feeling better is because there's actually steroids in that drug as well. And so, well, interestingly enough, T3 and T4 are actually, they are actually cortisols or steroids in the body's way of making them, so that's not harmful for you. But the drugs that you're getting are full of steroids as well, which are actually an immune suppressant. So now they understand what T3, T4 is, and I'm sorry for my mispronunciation of it, it's just a hard one to get your tongue around. The purpose of the thyroid, actually, as opposed to what medical science would say, that it was for producing these two hormones, T3 and T4, actually that is a small part of what the thyroid actually does. The main purpose of the thyroid is to keep the body in homeostasis, which basically the word means to keep it in balance. So it is a data sender and receiver. Okay, so the body sends the thyroid, just like a computer, the body sends the thyroid a whole bunch of data and information about how the body is going in its equilibrium, how it would normally be in its normal functions, how you normally feel, how you'd normally be interacting, or your organs would be interacting with one another, how much you need in the way of hormones and development of hormones and things like that, and their presentation throughout the body, and so many more things that the thyroid's actually doing to keep the body in homeostasis, or in its normal place where it would normally be, so that you feel normal all the time. Now, when the body stops feeling normal, and along with that I must mention as well that it does have some temperature regulation capacity as well there. So people who are complaining about being too hot, too cold, all these sorts of things, whilst that can be a liver issue with the liver overheating, or too cold can be, dirty blood, toxic blood, but there is a function of thermostat in there from the thyroid as well. And so that's its two main functions. The way that it keeps the body, by the way, in homeostasis is through the immune support and balance. So keeping your immune system balanced up, the thyroid actually has its own lymphocytes that are dedicated to the thyroid and, your tonsils, adenoids and things like that. And this is mostly unknown to science as well. As you probably know by now, if you've been watching my stuff, we get our information from Anthony William Medical Medium, way advanced and ahead of any medical science that there is today, and you can look into it for yourself, and the information is mind-blowing. But it explains all of the unknowns and the anomalies that we have in the medical world today as well, and then gives a way to heal naturally as well. So next up, temperature regulation, the steadiness, overall steadiness of the body through homeostasis. let's look at the different types of conditions that we can have. If someone has an aggressive virus in their thyroid that's gone to thyroid at the 3rd stage, what you're seeing when it comes to symptoms is 4th stage. So often the virus will move straight from 3rd stage into 4th stage at any time. It could be 1 year, it could be 10 years, it could be 2 minutes after it's come to the thyroid, whatever it is, it'll move on at some stage and leave its armies in the thyroid, and it's already left its armies in the liver, and then it's moving on to conquer new ground, which is the central nervous system. And when the central nervous system is becoming attacked, then over time the central nervous system begins calling more on the on the adrenals, and we'll talk about why the adrenals are so important just in a minute. We'll go back into when you have a more highly aggressive form of the virus, you can often get a diagnosis of hyperthyroidism or Graves. Now, what this really means is that you're overproducing certain hormones due to a swelling or an enlarging through cell mutation and increased growth stimulant of the thyroid. So the thyroid starts being stimulated by the virus and starts growing more and more thyroid cells, and therefore creating more and more hormone than it needs. And so this can cause a bulging of the eyes, the swelling of the thyroid so it's physically visible, and then of course what most people think of, goiter and things like that. And then of course they get some treatment on it, such as radioactive iodine or various other forms of treatment, radiation treatment and so forth. So that's through an overactive thyroid caused by the virus, and then the opposite is true of just low-grade viral infection causing a lowering, the damaging of the cells and a lowering of the hormone production. And then you've got Hashimoto's, which is technically what they call an inflamed thyroid. And so you're getting to that stage where the thyroid's becoming inflamed, it's becoming swollen, and then your diagnosis after having the hormone therapy has failed over, say, 10 or 15, 20 years, you may get a recommendation from the doctors that you have your thyroid taken out because it's at a state now where it's uncontrollable. Now, many people have already had their thyroids out, and this is not the end of the world. You know, they can never get every cell of your thyroid out of your that area, that region, and so the thyroid is still essentially there. If the cells are there, they're still doing their job, and because they actually have an interesting extra function, which is probably one of the main functions. Through this data transfer of the whole body to get homeostasis, the thyroid is an information gatherer, and so it actually sends out this information via, you know, for want of a better word, vibration or you know, a little bit like radio waves, that sort of thing, in terms of communication. And so it has this wonderful function, and if those cells are there, then it'll still communicate and do its job. It's just not as effective, and it actually has an ally that's backing it up and carrying out the rest of the work from those communications. So when it's communicating with the rest of the body, it's getting the information back, and it says, hey, we need this, and we need this, and we need to do this and this and this. Then it sends that information off to the adrenals, and the adrenals begin to, you know, produce a very, very, very close form of T3 and T4 and TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, which is normally produced by the pituitary. And so these are almost identical chemical compounds and steroids that are created by the body normally through the thyroid and through other glands, and the adrenals kind of take over from here. Now this can cause a problem because it creates the propensity for someone who already has other ailments and issues and has malaise and fatigue and that sort of thing, can also get adrenal fatigue eventually. And so eventually they'll go in 5 or 10 years time, say, I'm feeling really low, I'm feeling really terrible. The doctors didn't even know, you didn't even know you had a thyroid issue for 10 or 20 years, and then the adrenals start to collapse, and you go in and your blood gets tested, and they find that you're low on those hormones for the thyroid, and the doctor says, hey, you've got low functioning thyroid, you need to go on some drugs, da 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 da. And then you've got another 10, 15, 20 years of not realizing that you weren't helping the thyroid at all, and that those hormones that you were taking weren't actually hormones as much as they were steroids, which were just suppressing your immune system. That allowed the virus to get more and more active, and then you got a cascading set of events in your life that then triggered and ended in, ultimately the symptoms that are now classed as thyroid issues, when they're actually just viral issues. The main ones for thyroid, when it is the thyroid, is that heat and body temperature regulation, and its ability to communicate with the rest of the body and create homeostasis. So that's your Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's is a name given by, I think it was a Japanese doctor who discovered that the virus had created such inflammation in the thyroid, and then it was sort of coined that name, ultimately leading to further diagnoses and cysts and tumours and things like that. So we'll just talk about those now. When it comes to cysts, nodules, tumours in the thyroid, that is really just the body's natural defense mechanism. So when the virus is in there drilling away and it's doing its thing, the body comes along and places calcium to try and plug up those areas and encapsulate and encase the virus so that its activity is stymied. Unfortunate thing about it is that the virus is pretty smart, and it knows that it's got plenty of food there, it can feed on hormones all day long, and it's pretty happy in its little prison case there. And so when we get a scan or an x-ray and cysts and nodules are seen there, or a tumour, that's just, you're at that stage now where that virus has began to create enough commotion in the thyroid to the point where you're actually starting to develop these calluses, really, just basically to encapsulate those viruses that are in there. Now, all these things are done on a microscopic kind of level, and then when the calluses come in, like a tumour, any tumour is just a callus that's forming around the virus to protect the body. And so that's what's going on there. Now, often weight gain is blamed on the thyroid, and this is actually one of the misconceptions. Weight gain is when the liver becomes too sick and stagnant and sluggish to be able to process fat in the bloodstream. And so when we're consuming fats, oils, nuts, seeds, and cheeses and butters and all these other things, the liver's unable to process that after a particular time in your life, and you are going about your normal daily routines of trying to lose weight, going to the gym, working out, doing all these things, and you're just not losing that weight. That's a liver issue, and it's often blamed upon the thyroid. Now, the pituitary gland is an interesting one. Like I said, with the TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone, this pituitary gland would normally have communications with the thyroid. The thyroid would tell the and the rest of the body, and that's homeostasis segment, would normally tell the pituitary gland to up or down the TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone, to produce more or to produce less. Now, if the liver's unable to produce that extra TSH, then, like I said to you before, the adrenals kick in and begin to do that production. And so, interestingly enough, when we've been on medication for long periods of time, the liver's actually stripping that medication out of the bloodstream and storing it in the liver. And so over the years, the reason someone can go from hypothyroidism to hyperthyroidism, there is actually two reasons for it. One's got a low-grade non-aggressive virus creating the hypothyroidism, and an aggressive virus creating hyperthyroidism. So you kind of got the symptoms of Graves and hypo going at the same time. And then on the other side of the spectrum, when someone has been on a particular medication, say thyroxine, for 15, 20, 25 years, the liver can be so saturated with this this hormone, and with its cortisols and things that are in there to bring down inflammation, that this can leach back out into the bloodstream, and this can cause the readings to come up higher again as well when you've been low. And this actually gets the doctors real confused, because you've been low all these years and we've been treating it, and now all of a sudden, or over time, you become higher and higher and higher in your tests again. Is the thyroid producing more of these T3 and T4 again? No. What's actually happening is that the thyroxine medication is leaching back out into the bloodstream from an overburdened liver, and then the tests are picking that excess back up again. And this is when the medical world either prescribes more, or they'll change the drug and try and get around it that way, and then they'll say, well, why don't you have your thyroid taken out? It's obviously, going crazy. So this is kind of what happens. Now, as you can see here, that the drugs are really just a band-aid for what is going on. And what we want to know now is, what is the real answer, and how do we heal from it? And so this is where I usually get to on these talks, is we talk about some of the things to avoid so that you can stop the virus in its tracks doing the damage and doing the, causing the imbalances in the body that you're feeling as symptoms and conditions. Now, I'm going to just shoot over to one of the pages that I like on the Thyroid Healing book. I'm just going to read a little quick excerpt, bear with me here. You know how delicious fried eggs are? EBV thinks so too. Eggs are the top food to avoid for EBV, or for thyroid, of course, because that is the thyroid virus, because they're the virus' #1 food source. If you broke an egg into a petri dish and then you introduced EBV cells into it, the virus would proliferate rapidly. It doesn't matter if they're organic or the cleanest eggs in the planet. It just happens to be the perfect environment for viruses and bacteria to feed in, and science has used this for the last couple of hundred years to do so. They're still problematic if you have EBV. And don't be confused by labels that claim that eggs are, hormone-free. That only means that they don't contain any additional hormones. They are still filled with natural hormones. That's what you grow a chicken on. And if someone is in stage 1 of the virus, all it could take is one more omelette or scrambled egg to launch Epstein-Barr virus into stage 2, full-blown mononucleosis. That's what we know as glandular fever or mumps or rheumatic fever or scarlet fever, any of those different types of ones there. They're all the same. This is true at any stage of the virus, stage 3, stage 4, at any given time. Someone may only be one egg away from Epstein-Barr's next phase of attack. Listen, I know how tempting eggs are, and how many sources will tell you that they are the perfect food. Again, it is not about any sort of food belief system. I'm not anti-egg. They do have nutrition that works well for some people. It's just that when you're dealing with any sort of thyroid condition, I'm just getting some messages through, so I've just lost my place here. I'll just jump back on here. It is problematic. The problematic aspect of eggs outweigh the benefits, and they will work great too much interruption here. I'll just go on with what I'm saying. So eggs being number one to get off the list of foods that are going to feed you viruses and make your condition worse. Oils, canola oils, things like that, corn, pork, soy, all of those sorts of things. Eggs, dairy and gluten, corn and soy is my usual one. Everybody who listens to these lives knows that those are my kind of pet 5 worst things that you can have. Now, some of the things that are fantastic for healing this condition, and as most people know, obviously raw food is fantastic. All your fruit and vegetables, herbs, spices and berries. But aloe vera, apples. Apples are anti-inflammatory for the thyroid because they starve EBV. When their pectin enters into the digestive system, it releases phytochemicals that bind onto EBV, shrouding the virus's cell so that they can't feed or proliferate. That's pretty phenomenal. Arugula, which is rocket, reduces nodules, tumours, cysts in the thyroid, both cancerous and benign, and help to prevent EBV-related thyroid cancer in the first place. Arugula's phytochemical compounds enter into the thyroid, rejuvenating tissue, and they'll obviously help to reduce scarring and mutating cells. Asparagus cleanses the liver and the spleen, strengthens the pancreas. Why is that important? You have to have clean blood. And acts as an incredible supporter of the thyroid. Asparagus doesn't just inhibit the growth of EBV, it prevents it. Phytochemicals in the skin and tips of the asparagus push back the virus and help stop it from reproducing. Asparagus also contains, by the way, asparagus is fresh and in season right now, so it's a good chance to get in on it. We have it in our shop here, but also all around you'll find asparagus. Also contains pain-relieving alkaloids that act as a gentle aspirin throughout the body. Try it juiced or steamed. Atlantic sea vegetables, so it's Atlantic dulse. I'm always talking about that. It's a blood cleanser. Atlantic sea vegetables such as dulse is an antiseptic for the thyroid. When it is soaked into the gland, it becomes one of the thyroid's most powerful fighting mechanisms next to zinc. And of course I always mention zinc as one of your top weapons against virus and bacteria. Luckily, dulse and other sea vegetables also contain zinc. These two precious minerals at work together can stop a viral infection in the thyroid, bringing down thyroiditis, inflammation of the thyroid in the process. Sea vegetables also help protect the thyroid against radiation effects, removing radiation from the thyroid, which is one of the nasty fours, antibiotics, radiation, and there's a couple of others there as well. Avocados contain phytochemicals that protect the lining of the digestive tract, so on and so forth, and easily assimilatable copper that helps to balance T3 and T4 hormone production. Avocados form a natural glucose, calm sensitive nerves throughout the body, and have been irritated by neurotoxins. Bananas, and the list goes on. There's so many things here. I'll just name a few. Basil with its antiviral properties. Berries, obviously, for their antioxidants. Cauliflower, celery. Celery is the biggest healer bar none. Cilantro, coconut, cruciferous vegetables. Now often you'll hear when people are talking about the thyroid that the cruciferous range of vegetables are to be avoided for the thyroid. This is totally opposite to the truth. Get into those and have a heap of your cruciferous vegetables. They will heal and help to heal all manner of illness and disease. But try and have a lot of them raw. Try and have most of them raw for that fact. Cucumber, dates. Dates are phenomenal. Dates contain potassium, magnesium and glucose that support the endocrine system. Dates help to purge the liver of debris, often caused by EBV waste matter. That's the virus, Epstein-Barr. They also trigger peristaltic action, helping to cleanse the intestinal tract and to squeeze and push out multiple varieties of waste that can burden the body when you try and heal. Fennel, figs. Figs grab onto toxins in the intestinal tract and drive them out. Garlic, antiviral, antibacterial, and defends against Epstein-Barr virus by killing off the virus cells. I mean, you can actually see that under a microscope as well for many bacteria, viruses, parasites and so forth. If you just get a bit of garlic juice and squeeze that in your pipette under the microscope, and that does a very quick work on bacteria, viruses and that sort of thing. Garlic, ginger, hemp seeds, kale, lemons and limes, lettuce, mango. Maple syrup holds dozens of trace minerals that fortify the brain and reset the nervous system, protecting them from antioxidants due to heavy metal damage from the Epstein-Barr virus. Because think about it, if you've got a virus in there and it's working away on your thyroid, it's working away on everything at the same time. Nuts, specifically walnuts, Brazil nuts and almonds. Now I recommend, if you've got a digestive issue, to keep these low. If you're dealing with trying to lose weight, keep the nuts and seeds very low. If not, cutting them out altogether. But they do have some healing properties in them as well. Onions and scallions, oranges and tangerines, papayas, parsley, pears, pomegranates, radishes raw, and this is just going in alphabetical order. So raw honey, it's not kind of in you know, chronological kind of benefit order. Raw honey, sesame seeds, spinach. Once again, keep the nuts and seeds down if you're trying to heal. Sprouts, microgreens, squash, sweet potato, thyme, tomatoes, watercress, turmeric, blueberries, and of course the wonderful globe artichoke. By the way, they're in season. The ones at my place are almost ripe. Well, actually, they're ready to harvest right now, so that's exciting for me. But yeah, so many things. And then when it comes to supplements, the number one being zinc, B12, vitamin C, spirulina, barley grass, and juice powder, cat's claw, lemon balm, licorice. And you don't have to do them all, but you can do, do as many as you can. Make sure with licorice you only do it 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or 1 week on, 1 week off. Have a break in between, because it's cumulative in the liver. L-lysine, that's huge, man, like antiviral, amazing. Chaga mushroom, huge antiviral. 5-MTHF, that's the methylfolate, which you hear a lot about today. Barley grass juice powder, I mentioned that. Monolaurin, silver hydrozole, L-tyrosine, ashwagandha, red marine algae, nettle leaf, B complex, magnesium glycinate, EPA, DHA. Oh, just when we're talking about homeostasis here, magnesium, this homeostasis mineral is all about keeping the thyroid production, hormone production in balance, so that the thyroid neither under or over produces hormones. It can also be helpful in reducing neurological symptoms we looked at in chapter 5. EPA, DHA, bladderwhack, selenium, curcumin, chromium, B12, manganese, elderberry, red clover, This readily available herb is a miracle for cleaning and purifying the liver, lymphatic system, and the spleen of EBV neurotoxins. Star anise, copper. This is one that I don't usually recommend because people are usually so high in copper already, both in trace mineral form and in its toxic heavy metal form. If you think your copper load is low enough, though, and if you're doing the heavy metal detox, which I'm doing right now, you could probably bring your very low levels of ionic copper to help repel EBV. Now, of course, you're talking about avocados and things like that. In kind of like your natural coppers. You don't want to be going for any kind of supplemental type coppers. Can also be helpful in loosening up and removing heavy metals, copper, and the heavy metal form of copper, that is. So yeah, there's a bunch of supplementations that you can benefit from. Bring in loads of fruit and vegetables, and mostly raw. Cut down on your fats and your protein intake, particularly during the morning. That's one of the reasons I'll have my detox smoothie. It has no protein or fat in it. It's just fruit, spirulina, barley grass juice powder, dulse seaweed, cilantro, and banana, orange, coconut water, all blended up together with wild blueberries. That's pretty much the ingredients of it. I do put my supplements in there as well because I like I don't like taking supplements that much, so I chuck them in my smoothie, and it's a good way to deal with it. Tastes delicious, great boost of energy, and then you can get in, when lunchtime comes, you can get into your salads and baked potatoes or steamed, whatever, but try and keep as much raw as possible. So I recommend everybody start their day with as much lemon water and honey as they can drink. I do a litre every morning, and that flushes everything out, cleans up everything on the way through the intestinal tract, the bloodstream, the liver, the kidneys, the spleen. Everything gets flushed and washed out, particularly after a sleep. And then just bring in those herbs, spices, berries, and increase the amount of raw, natural, and whole foods you can possibly have. And obviously it's going to be better if you're doing organic. Not because I own an organic shop, but because you're getting less of those sprays and chemicals in your diet that are going to clog up the liver and cause the virus to get more and more food. That happened to be the thing in the first place that got the whole problem going of the thyroid damage. So that's what you need to know, and we've got heaps more information on the thyroid. We've got information on how to heal, what to eat, what not to eat, recipes, everything. It's all on the website there. And if you send me a message or click through on the questions if they pop up there, that'll get sent directly to you, and any personalized questions you can just send through on here. If you like this information and you think that it might be helpful for someone else out there that you know, like it, share it, and get the message out there so that we can start helping others heal. And we also have everything here that we recommend, and we can ship that out all over New Zealand, or if you're local here in Hamilton, 245 Commerce Street in Frankton, come in and see us. We'll talk you through it. We'll give you the information to take away. But yeah, send us a message. Tell us what your problem is, how you'd like to heal, even if it's something related, unrelated, and we'll go from there. Good to talk to you again. I'll catch up with you next week with another round of fantastic information on health and healing and how you can go about getting yourself back to normal again, or even better than normal, and so you can feel well again, full of energy and vitality. Thanks guys, we'll catch up with you all again soon. Cheers.